So you're saying that under normal circumstances, the wicked must run their course, and then the tzaddik can bring them down. To bring them down in the zenith, the height of their power, but they're aligned with Oides the Toihu. Before that look of the leech is fully gorged and filled with blood, before the Mariam, as Hashem told Avraham, you have to wait 4 generations before the wickedness of the locals has reached its measure, and then they can be driven out. So to take them down during that period, it's the Eibishter alone. And that would be an exception to the rule. But then he said there's another rule. So the first rule is that the tzaddik can, provided already the measure is full. And there's a tamtzis of tamtzis, essence of life force left within them, not the gewaldige keiches of Eidos the Toyu. And then Olam Atikun, which is the tzaddik, Atzilus, the orderly world of Kedusha, can defeat them. But then, so that's normally, that's the rule, the rule as a rule. The tzaddik can do that. As we said, the exception to the rule is when Hashem steps in. But there's another rule, he says. And the other rule is that if they're not just wicked independently, but they oppress Eden, and then the Rebbe added, they even conspire, plot to press Eden. He brought from the Rishalmi, and Tesis brings it in Masechta Kedushin, that by an akum as opposed to a yid, machshava k'maisa, so then that too warrants their destruction. And that's because their whole metzias that Ramez explains is the Ramez and the Zohar. What was the Zohar? The Zohar was, the Eibishter waits for the wicked till the measure is full. This time we're talking there about the Deir HaMabul. So the Ramez explains why, if they are oppressing Eden, is that a warrant? That's a rule, not an exception. It's that Rebbe is insisting that their downfall, because their chitzonius and Eden are expressed in primius hakavana, which simple language means that chitzonius means that it serves a purpose. It's a means for an end. It's not absolutely unqualified. What's what we're looking for? It's not an unconditional. A Yid's relationship with God is unconditional. Even if he sins, he's still a Yid. But the rest of the world is conditional. It only exists in order to serve the purpose. So if it's confounding the purpose, then it has no metzias. It has no right to existence. Right? Famous Ma'amar Chazal, Yom HaShishi. Why does it say Yom HaShishi by Ma'aseh Bereishis, and not Yom Shishi like the other days, Yom Chamishi, Yom Revi, Yom Shlishi? Because Hashishi, the 6th day, because Rashi brings, they made a condition with creation that it's all good and fine, and the sea will exist. But when it comes to Torah, the sea has to part, and nature has to conform, has to give way, because the whole kavanah is a Yid in Torah. And if it doesn't, it has no right to existence. That's what Rebbe is insisting here, revealing here, creating here, based on the Zohar, that if a Yid affects a Yid, then them is battle. They were saying this is 1966, and this was happening, the Chassidim in Russia. What was their longing and desire? Freedom to come to America, make a lot of money. That's all that they aspired to. They wanted the freedom there or wherever to be Mekayim Torah mitzvahs. And therefore it all came in the end crumbling down, the whole communism. Kain Yevedu kol Evdei Hashem. So Bepratius, he said that what's the Gilui here? The Gilui here, Malamaila is Shem Ab, Ayin Beis, where the Gilui, the Milui of all of the letters is Yud. Again, the Yud is always Yud, Vav, Dalet, spelled that way in all of the configurations, but then the Hey, the Shem Havai is Hey Yud, and the Vav is Vav, Yud, Vav, and so on. Whereas Shem Sag, so there's three Shemas we're talking about. From the bottom up, the Shem Ba, which is Tikkun Ilamat Tikkun, the Milui there is Aleph. That yields 45. That's the Aleph of Torah, as he says, we'll see in a moment, in a review, right? And then there's Shem Sag, that's Ilamat Torah. That's a Milui of a mixture of Aleph and Vav. Everything has a Vav, except one has an Aleph. And what is that? The Vav is spelled Vav, Aleph, Vav. Why the Aleph? Because this is not the Aleph of Kedusha. This is the Aluf, the chieftains, the 11 chieftains recounted in Sefer, in Pashas Vayeshev. In the Pashas Vayeshev, the 7 chieftains of Esav, the 11. Why 11? Because Kedusha is 10. Kedusha is integrated, but Klippa is 11. It's all fragmented. But the counter to that is Yud Aleph the Kedusha, the transcendent level. So at any rate, so that's their crowns, their peaks of separation, the words of the Zohar. Ture de Pruder. And that's, as he said, it's Achvidas HaKelim, so from Shem Sag, which is in itself a very lofty level. So it comes down in the way of Yeshus and Metzias, the Aluf, as in Aluf, meaning the word Aluf, which is assertion, self-assertion, and dominion, as opposed to the Aleph in Torah, which is Aleph Chachma, Aleph Chabina. I'll teach you Chachma, I'll teach you Bina, which is Chachma, Bina, Kedusha. So Esav is Shem Sag, Tzadikim Hashem Ma. But now he's saying there's Shem Ab, Ayin Beis, 72. So that is the Gilui of the Pnimius. And that is revealed when the forces of Klippa go beyond their mandate of being just Klippa, but they oppress a Yid. And then, Hinini Meshiach Me'rochek, I will save you, Me'rochek, from this transcendent level of Hashem Ab. That's the deeper meaning of Hinini Meshiach Me'rochek. Zohar quotes the pasuk. The pasuk is in Yirmiyahu. So the meracheh from a distance means this very lofty level, and that's the level of Shem Ab, and that's David HaMelech's bemoans, Lo ma'avayet tamid berachek. Don't stand at that level of rachek. Reveal it, be mamshich at the matter. So that's a darga. It's called distant because in the face of this darga, Torah and Tikkun are equal. That's tzarich iyun, because he said v'adarabah Torah is even higher, which means it's not truly transcendent. If one is higher, one is closer. If they're equal at Torah, even a greater level. So tzarich iyun a little bit there. I'm looking, if you look at the text, but number 45, that's where he says that the dark of Mirachak is the dark of Kachashecha Koira, where dark and light are equal. Shneim B'Shove, and then he says, Adarabah Toya Kodem L'Tikun. Okay, it's a much higher level to say they're equal. Not that one is closer, one is further. Which is a B'chal, I know it's Mavur and Chassidus. Sebev Kol Almin. But this is somehow in between Darga. But the Shaila is, he says, Adarabah on top of, even more so, higher than Kachashecha Koira, Adarabah Toya is even closer. It's not such a big kasha, we could answer it, but to be noted. Okay. Beis Vav.
He doesn't say, I mean, if you look near 45, maybe he's implying that the Kushabrichu Salak Elo to the level of Kachashecha Ko'era. And therefore, Toyu is higher than Tikkun.
If it's a darga of infinite, why is Torah? How could any darga be closer?
Because it's Managolus. It's Salik.
Yeah, but to what darga? Salik to the darga of Kachashecha Ko'era, Sheshneim B'Shove. If Shneim B'Shove means it's fundamentally beyond both, nothing. Shneim B'Shove means nothing could be closer because it's totally beyond both. Gvul and Bli. We're not talking mamash gvul and bli gvul. That's the thing. Taka gvul and bli gvul, which is the etzem higher than gvul and bli gvul. So their takas, you can't speak one being further or closer. But the chayda, this dark is not the true kachashecha ka'ira. Usually it is, though, it's the level of geirol. Usually it is the level of bli gvul. Anyway, and it's other things still. To say that Torah is a darga also of Kachashecha Ka'ira in some way. If it's closer to it, it means it has some shaykhs to that Indian. So Torah is also kind of expression of Kachashecha Ka'ira, Ka'iris in the Kelim B'Shava. Don't know. I said I could answer it, but I'm thinking about it. I can't. Don't know. All right, Beis Vav. Yeah, a Beis Vav. Bapizeh Yuvan Maimer HaMedrash Al Apostle Vayivez Beinu. So this is back to the Medrash that the Maimer began with. So the pasuk says that it was despicable in Mordechai was despicable in the eyes of Haman and sought to destroy him. And then Gidullah, and he told him, "It's Mordechai, so all the Jews." So the Medrash says that when Haman exhibited this trait, this hatred, that Mordechai was despicable, so Hashem says to him, Buzi ben Buzi, despicable one, the son of a despicable one. Before we learned Vayivez the Esav despised the B'chayra, and now you're doing the same. And that Haman despised Mordechai and the Eden and sought to destroy them. What's the connection we asked between the union of Esav despising the B'chayra and Haman's desire to destroy the Eden? We have the answer. The whole cause of Haman's rise, what's the Pnimius is his power. Because of which Shem Mordechai Kedem Ishtacha B'loi. And Mordechai does not bow down to him, despite his height, his great power. And why is it? Is his zenith? Because he's aligned with Eilam HaToyo. V'lachin Vayivez Be'inav Vayivakesh L'Haman L'Hashmid Eskol HaYehudim Hi. Therefore, he despises Haman and wants to destroy. He despises Haman. Despises Mordechai. Wants to destroy the Eden. It is biklal because says the Medrash Buzi ben Buzi. Shezikna shel Mordechai Yaakov Tishtachva l'zikna shel Haman Esav. Your grandfather bowed down to my grandfather, to Esav. He acknowledged the supremacy of Eilam HaToyo when he was this battle. What is this bowing down that Yaakov bowed down to Esav? Because Yaakov, who was tikkun in the Matzilus, bows and is bottled to the source of Esav, which is Eilam HaToyo. And that is why Esav and Esav is the B'chor. This is what the Medrash says. Buzi ben Buzi, lahalon ksiv Vayivez Esav asapchayre, v'kan ksiv Vayivez beinav lashmi Haman lashmi tzkol haYehudim haynu. The comparison between Esav and Haman is shasiv Vayivez beinav v'mitzad zeh. The reason that Haman finds Mordechai despicable is because Vayivez Esav asapchayre, because Esav despised the firstborn right, because he was connected to it. But he despised it. That was his mistake. But it was so much is he connected to the b'chora that he is the master of it. To regret it and to sell it. Esav thought it through, so jetzt gewaltige Sach, the B'chora connected to Eilam HaToyo. What's the Avodah? This extreme radical of Avodah of the Kahanim, not interested. But the fact that Vayivez means, that's why he's teaching it here, he despised it because he's a balabas over it. So the Eibush is telling to Haman in heaven, so you're doing the same now. Now you want to assert that Yaakov bowed down to Esav was the balabas on Eilam HaToyo, when you are now connected to Eilam HaToyo, and you want to do the same thing. We just finished learning now, that's all very good, but when you want to start up with the Eden, that's the end of you. The Medrash goes on to describe the futility of Haman's machinations of his desire. So a bird So what's the bird doing? The story was that the bird had built a nest and the ocean had swept it away. So he's going to take revenge now. He's going to not leave until the dry land is ocean and the ocean is dry land. He takes with his beak some water from the ocean, deposits to the sand, takes some sand and deposits in the ocean. Obviously a futile activity. So the Medrash continues that his friend, the friend of the bird, and his colleague, his friend comes and tells him, he sets him straight and says, you have rotten luck, bishguda, tumia mazala, bad luck and hidden mazel. Saf mat yachel. In the end, what are you accomplishing? Nothing. So to the Eibusha said to Haman Harashia, Ei sheitish ba'ilo. Ani amati lashvidem. I said, I'll destroy them. Kavayachol v'layacholti. I couldn't. Moishe stopped it. Pasuk in Tilim, capital Kovov. And Hashem said to destroy the Eden, was going the Medrash. Luli Moishe, without Moishe, Bechira, his chosen one, Amad Beperetz, the fun of which stood at the breach before God, Lashem Chamasim Ashchis, to return God's anger from destroying the Eden. And you are going to destroy them, says the Eibishter. By your life, your head will be removed in exchange for theirs. They will be saved and you'll be hung. Sliver. So all the pratim now we understand in the Medrash, almost all of them. It's in the Maimir, so that one of the shaylas was that in the Nimshol, the Eibishter is the one that is telling Haman it's all futility, exercise and futility. So why does the Medrash describe the one who tells that to Haman as his friend? The Eibishter is Haman's friend. You have the answer. Mamsheh b'Medrash HaMoshaloi for Bo Chaveda, and his friend came for Aloi and told him, what you're doing is pointless. So the Shaila was Shenikra Chaveda Kavayachal. The Eibishter is Haman's Chaveda. The answer is yes. They got the Sherish L'Maila. They give him Sheshal Esav B'Toy. The Sherish of Esav is Toyo of Haman. Shenikra Chaveda. You're close. That's we said before. Yeah. The B'Toy is even closer to the darga of Hin Mishiach HaMerochik. That's why Chavera, Kizod the Tikkun. Oh, no, not the Eibishter saying that. This is the Tzaddik. This is the Eibishter Lama Tikkun. That's interesting. Yeah, L'chei Nikra. Sorry, take that back. L'chei Nikra Chavera Kizod the Tikkun Chavera Shazad the Toyo. Because Zod the Tikkun is the Chaver close to the world that precedes Zod, the midas of Elam HaTikkun. Shari Zod and Yonei Midas. Zod, which is Elam HaToyo, that's Shema, it's midas. Closing the Elam HaToyo, Zayin Malkin. And what happened? In the Elam HaToyo, there's 7 kings. The 7 kings of Fneim Bloch that recounted also then in Parshas Vayeshev. There's the 11 chieftains and the 7 kings. Sho'inyan HaMidas, that's the Midas. So that's the Midas in the way of Tayo, which give way in the end to the Midas B'derech Tikkun. So V'toichen HaMayne Shalchavei. So who's the friend here? The friend is Zod Atzilus. So the meaning of the answer response is that Zod Atzilus is Ani Amarti Lashmidim Kavayacham V'lo Yachalti. I said to destroy them. That's Bezdin Shamayla at its highest level.
Isn't it Kutcha Brichu, Shchinte, Za and Malchus?
Kutcha Brichu, yeah. What? Yeah. Kutcha Brichu, that's it. Kutcha Brichu, he, that's, yeah. That's Zod Atzilus. So now the Bezdin Shamayla said they were deserving a punishment and I couldn't. Again, Moshe Rabbeinu defends them. And you say you want to do it. Even when the Eden blemished through their chet, Zod Atzilus, the highest level of Shtaushalus, which occurs about Poishim B. That's in the context that it's not just they sin, but they sin in me, says the Eibishter. They blemish me. Begufa the Malka, the very body of the king, that's Zod Atzilus. And that's why the response was Chet Egel there to destroy them. Continues Zod Atzilus become Mokim Lahay Yachal Kavayachal. I was unable Kavayachal. Fisher Moishe Bechira Moishe is chosen on Amud Beperes and Father of Lashem Hamas and Mashchis defended the Yidden. How did he do that? These are Shehim Shech Meyud Gimel Midas Harachamim. Because Moishe was Mamshech Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim. Higher than the Natzilus. Fishermeich had moved Marash, but he must have been of Tavshchavtes, the Marash explains on the mind by these words of Tavshchavtes. Shashon maybe got mind by Medesh Rabbanal, Boshalam on the Shir. In this whole context, he brings in his explanation that Moishe was Mamshech. He brings this Medesh we're talking about. This is the Gewalt of Moshe Rabbeinu. This is the Hemshech of the previous Maimon. Av Nishaya, Moshe, Isis, Moshe. He transforms bitterness to sweetness and darkness to light. He draws down from his lofty level the less smaller by a ticket. There's no gevura in Atik, Pnimius HaKesed. There's no left. This is the response that his friend Zodat Zilus. And that is She'im Zodat Zilus. If Zodat Zilus Chavedi Shel Toyo, which is the neighbor, the friend of Toyo, Hasherish the Haman, which is Haman Sheish Layor Chlash Midain, they blemished there and still they could not be destroyed. Why? Explain it, because Moshe's Mamshech steps in, and his Mamshech from higher, from Hashem's infinite Rachamim. Much more so, Haman down here, not the pure Sheidish, even though he's aligned with it, cannot overcome Yidden. So that's the Chavod. So what was the Chavod? The Chavod is Zod Atzilis. Yeah, the Lashon HaMedrash is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as Chaim is saying. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the male, as opposed to the Shechina, that's Zod Atzilis. The Shechina is Malchus. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Zod. So Messiah B'Medrash, so the Medrash concludes, Chayacha by your life, Reishcha Meturim, your head will be lifted off, Chelif Rishayin, in exchange for theirs. Dinam L'Shizva, they'll be saved, Vat Litzliva, and you will be hung. What's the head? Reish Daike. What's the diak of the head? You'll be eliminated, you'll be destroyed. What's the head? It's this whole reason, and this taina that Eden should be subjugated to him is because he comes from higher Sheidish. He's like about Toyo, Yaakov bowed to me, you have to bow to me. Taina Reisha. His whole taina and his whole strength comes from his source. Toyo Shakata Latikum. They tell him, oh, it's fine and good, it's all very good, my friend, but there's a higher level that is the source of Yidden. Yidden, he's saying, Yidden Shomas, Chelik from the Mamash, rooted in Shem Ab, higher. That their source, it's higher ultimately than yours. Mitzad the Seder, you're higher. Mitzad the Sheidish, Eden are higher. P'chinazur, that's the darga of Hini Mishayachem Berochek. I will save you from the distance. This is this transcendent level that it identifies the Shem Ab, which is Pnimius HaKesed. And therefore, it's all to no avail, Haman. V'chein inu l'shizva. They will be saved. Latzola mikol ha'gzeiris shel kol ha'kom aleim. Saved from all of the gzeiris, all that rise up against them. Because the Yidden had light and joy and gladness and respect. Gain to Yalondos, we say in Tfilas Havdalah. Just saw yesterday that there's a medrash that says that it actually fits now that Haman was Jewish. It's like Esav. Little known medrash, Kabbalah medrash. It makes sense. Esav is, is a Yid. Sheidish Adrab very high, Matoyu, but fell very low. I mean, he had the halachic status of a apostate Jew, of a Bekoros, of a Kaifer, of a Min. That's a fascinating twist of the whole story. But Pnimius Einyanim, it's understood. Just like Esav. Okay, so Be'ez Hashem tomorrow. Yeah, so we'll review the Maamar and we'll begin the next Maamar, which I will post. Yeah. Okay, but have a wonderful day.